So without further ado, I'll hand the stage over to Rana, who will take us through kind of lifecycle automation.
You're welcome. Hello, hi everyone. So I had to choose a tune that we can relate to, so I chose this one. I played this for my daughter, and I think just kind of it resonated as we're also embarking on a whole new world here with re-embarking on automation with AI and ML, and Will spoke about this morning. There's a lot of new possibilities and a lot of new capabilities that we can achieve now with this technology. Having said that, I really want to welcome you all here. I really appreciate the fact that you guys are spending 3 days here with us. We've got a pretty exciting agenda for you. And what I plan to do here in the next 30 minutes is spend time kind of showing you an overview of the overall automation portfolio that we have, and basically touch on what are the key industry trends that we see across the service provider market, and basically how are we also taking this back in standards bodies to ensure that you can operate networks much more efficiently, not just for the Cisco domain, but across multi-vendor and multi-domain networks. Now, having said that, as we started on this journey a few years back, our main goal was how do we really make this super simple for service providers? And how do we allow all our customers to not just operate the Cisco network that they buy from us, but also have a unified manner to manage multi-vendor and multi-domain networks, because every service provider has different vendors deployed, but also different network layers. You've got IP, you've got optical, and if you really truly want to manage the network efficiently, you really need to understand the correlation between those network layers and be able to manage them in a unified manner. So we kind of started from the place where a lot of our customers as well start, which is really service provisioning. Once you start on the automation journey, one of the very first use cases people go after is, I want to automate the repeatable task of provisioning the network, provisioning the services. And we were super lucky to have a very strong product with NSO that's been widely deployed in hundreds of customers. And it's fully multi-vendor, and it's been orchestrating over 170 multi-vendor devices. So we leveraged that as our foundation. And then we said, look, we're going to build on this so that we're not just doing provisioning, but we're actually going across the whole life cycle of network operations and making that a reality by adding the other functions that you would need to be successful. So from there, we said, OK, the next thing we need to have is a workflow automation engine. Why do you really need that? It's because you're always going to have different custom processes, and you're going to want to define them. And if you really want to embark on the journey of closed-loop automation, you need an engine that helps you define those workflows and get them towards execution. And for that reason, we launched the Crosswork Workflow Manager last year. And this year, we have a lot of new exciting things that we're going to share about what we added there and how that enables for you simplistic workflow automation. And then from there, we got to visibility, right? And it's absolutely key. You need to be able to visualize your network. You need to be able to understand what's really happening across your multiple domains and your multiple layers. And we basically then started from a clean sheet, and we said, look, we're not going to leverage our NMS and try to repurpose that. We're going to start from a clean sheet architecture, building an IP SDN controller that allows us to really give a single pane of glass over all the IP network across the different vendors that you would have. And to do that, we had to build it based on standard interfaces, standard protocols, and we built the Crosswork Network Controller, which is now a leader in this space within the IP domain. But then we felt that we have a gap, right? You can manage the IP network, but if you don't really get visibility into the optical domain and all the way down to your fiber, you're going to be missing a big part of the network. And we kind of looked around, and optical is more of a proprietary domain. It's less of standardized compared to IP. And basically, we looked in the industry, and we found Sedona, which were really leaders in this space. And they have really built what we call a hierarchical controller that enables you to integrate with any existing NMS or SDN controller that you would have today for any IP or optical vendor. and really bring all of that together in a single pane of glass across the whole network. So we were super happy to do this acquisition a few years back and been super successful with several tier 1 deployments, really revolutionizing this part and this space. And now we can give you the complete visibility across your IP and optical networks, completely multi-vendor. Then we get to assurance, which is absolutely key. If you really want to reduce your customer churn, you want to basically provide more differentiated services, you need to have a way to drive service assurance. And that's why we invested a lot in our SDN controllers to get the capability of mapping the service and its intent all the way down to the network layers so that you can really understand how does any alarm or alert that you have in the network actually translate into a service impact, and how can you remediate that in a much faster manner. We've built those in our SDN controllers, but again, we felt that there was a bit of a gap or some other capabilities that we needed to really be best in class in the industry. And we needed two things. We needed additional data that you don't necessarily get from your network devices. We needed data that you can get from probes. And we needed as well a strong analytics engine as we get into the AI ML world so that we can do a lot more trending, analytics, and anomaly detection and so on. And that's why we acquired Exidian last year. And even before the acquisition was completed, we actually did the full integration of Exidian with Crosswork to give you a complete, comprehensive solution that is also completely multi-vendor. Then from there, we get into planning. A lot of you are super acquainted with our Rana automation engine. It's been there for many, many years, and it's been doing capacity planning for IP and optical networks. Now we're kind of modernizing that, putting it onto the Crosswork platform, and we're adding predictive AI capabilities, but also new use cases where you don't just plan based on capacity or utilization. You can now start planning based on energy or sustainability goals that you might have. And we're going to show you across the next couple of days how we've also completely integrated that within our SDN controller portfolio. Then we basically get to optimization, which is really the heart of our IP SDN controller, where you really want to optimize your SR and SRv6 networks, and you really want to be able to adapt the network in real time to your service constraints and the intent you want to drive. For example, you want to drive a high bandwidth service or a high latency service. How do you basically automatically optimize the network and choose the right network path based on those service constraints? And all of that gets done automatically using the Crosswork Network Controller, and we're going to show you that as well within the next couple of days. So this is basically all the functions that we believe are necessary to fully automate a multi-vendor, multi-domain network, and that's what we've been investing in. And as you can see, we've built internally, but we've also complemented our capabilities with acquisitions along the way to basically build the best in class. Now, the challenge of operating IP and optical networks is a challenge that all service providers do acknowledge. And as you can see here, you've got two different silos, two different domains. Each one will have different types of design tools, proprietary NMSs, which makes it very hard to do efficient capacity planning or be able to optimize your service as well. And that's why the industry got together, and they've basically defined an IETF as standard architecture to solve for this problem. And like Will mentioned earlier today, the way we solve it is we move towards a more hierarchical approach where you've got existing maybe NMSs or existing SDN controllers, and you basically add new ones as you go into the multi-vendor space. But then you basically connect all of those towards a hierarchical controller that will be your single pane of glass across the whole network. And as you can see here, this has also been endorsed by the TIP Forum, where a lot of the leading operators get together to define those standards and define the use cases that they're going after. And we've been super successful driving this with a lot of the tier 1 operators as well, a lot of those customers. Now, a question that always comes up after we talk about this architecture is who does what, right? You've got multiple controllers. Who's really responsible for the different functions? In very simple terms, the respective domain controller is the only entity that is allowed to directly talk to the network elements, whether it's to provision them, whether it's to collect data from them. And if you're actually wanting to do automation within only one specific domain, all what you need is that specific domain controller, and that's it. In our case, for IP, it's the Crosswork Network Controller. It can do complete multi-vendor service provisioning, but also service assurance, all the device lifecycle management, all the optimization across the IP network as well. Now, when you get to the optical domain, it's a bit more proprietary, so every vendor is going to have their own respective domain controller. And that's why you get the hierarchical controller on top that should really not be talking to any network devices. It should only talk to those respective domain controllers and is responsible for abstracting this to a higher layer where you get to stitch across all of those domains and basically the different layers and do any multi-layer operations or multi-domain operations. Again, that can be provisioning, can be optimization, assurance, and so on and so forth. Now, we've kind of aligned our portfolio to this standard architecture, as you can see here, and we've been launching a lot of new capabilities. So on the Crosswork HCO, we basically launched a vast array of network adapters to all the different vendors. So all the top vendors that you would have in your network, Nokia, Juniper, Huawei, Ciena, and so on and so forth, those are already supported by HCO. We've also added the routed optical networking automation. What that really means is simply giving you the ability to manage converged IP and optical networks if you start using the ZR0+ technology to basically enable TCO savings by integrating transponders into your routers. HCO can help you manage that in a unified manner. We've added brand new capabilities as well around multi-layer orchestration within the Crosswork HCOs as well. On CNC, our IP SDN controller, we've been investing in a lot of the leading technologies. We've added 5G transport slicing capabilities fully aligned to IETF. We've added Rana automation. We've also been adding the service assurance capabilities where we've integrated CNC and Xcidian together to give you a seamless offer. And all of this comes unified within a single controller. And not just the service management functions, we've also added the element management functions now so you can have a single pane of glass across your IP network. Now, while we've been talking a lot about the SDN controllers, the foundation elements of them remain the same, like leveraging NSO for orchestration or leveraging the Crosswork Workflow Manager. And we've basically still enabled customers to buy those standalone because certain customers might come and say, look, I don't want to do all the full-blown use cases. I just want to start with orchestration, or I just want to start with workflow. And we continue to innovate there as well. We're launching the AI chatbot on NSO. On the Crosswork Workflow Manager, we've added brand new capabilities for out-of-the-box fleet upgrades, zero-touch provisioning, golden config, and others, so that you don't need to really go and program them. You just get them out of the box and hit the road running. So moving on to the Crosswork hierarchical controller, really the power of this automation solution is really what you see here on the right. The ability to map the service all the way down to your logical IP layer, the physical IP layer, and then down to the optical, and then all the way down to the fiber. And the power of this is you can really see how a specific fiber cut, for example, is leading to specific failures in your IP or optical domain, but also all the way up to the service. And having that understanding of your network and your services is really unprecedented. And being able to do this over your multi-vendor network and across multiple domains is really where the power comes from. For routed optical automation, this has been super important to us. We made a big bet on routed optical networking. We've spent billions of dollars acquiring companies like Acacia and others because we really do believe that this is the next big transition for operators as they look to converge their infrastructures and get significant TCO savings. And we've got public references with the customers like Colt and Aurelian and others where they have realized more than 45% TCO savings by leveraging this new architecture shift. However, to get there, you really need an automation solution that would allow you to manage that optical circuit end-to-end. Because now you no longer have the optical circuit confined within your optical OLS domain. You're kind of pulling out the transponder function and putting it into the router. And optical circuit starts there, which means you need a unified way to monitor that optical circuit end-to-end, provision it, assure it, and actually give even the optical operations team the capability to manage it. And this is basically the innovation we've been adding as well within Crosswork HCO to allow you to do that in a seamless manner, where it doesn't matter where the transponder function is, you're really going to get a unified way of managing that IP and optical network. So to show you here a demo, so let's say between core 1 and core 2, we really want to create a new RON link over 00+. You can see here it's multi-vendor. We've got NCS2K ROADMs, and we've got as well the Sienna 6500 ROADM. And we're looking here to add a new cross-link between the router with the pluggable and your ROADM system. You can get your complete inventory. You can get all the port data. You can even understand how they're completely connected automatically. And then you can go here and start creating a new point-to-point link. Let's name it IP link over Sienna. And you can decide what is the rate, what are the different endpoints that you really want to configure this over, and what's the transmit power, and basically get that automatically provisioned. Right? So you can define your IP addresses, define what frequency, L-band or C-band, and really get to review like the whole template before you configure it, and then automatically get the wavelength and all the parameters of this. The link comes up, automatically detected, and now you can actually look, click on that link and see the correlation and the connectivity from the IP layer down to the ROADMs that it connects through. And you can see the path, as you can see, correlated step by step, physically and logically as well. And the lambda that basically came up. And now that you've provisioned it, you need to be able to assure it, right? And you want to look at the optical parameters end-to-end, so you can click on that link that was created. You can see the optical circuit spanning the router port into the ROADMs. And you can see, what's your bit error rate, prefect, what's your Q factor, and the other parameters. And you can continuously basically monitor that and assure it, right? And this is completely multi-vendor, as you can see. We showed how this is done over Sienna 6500s as an example. Then we get to the Crosswork Network Controller, which is really our IP SDN controller, like I mentioned, and it's really giving you all those capabilities and all those use cases in a single solution, right? Starting from the simple things like element management functions to get your device performance, fault, inventory, but then getting to the more advanced functions like service assurance capabilities, the path optimization, and also closed loop automation, right? And we get the closed loop by integrating the workflow engine that we also offer standalone, and that opens up a lot of new possibilities for us to define whatever closed loop use cases that you would like to run in your specific network. Obviously, all of this is completely multi-vendor. We leverage standard interfaces southbound to the network, BGP-LS, PSEP, OpenConfig, and so on and so forth. And then northbound, we leverage as well standard interfaces towards your OSS integration using REST and RESTconf APIs. And last month, for those of you that were at MPLS World Congress in Paris, you might have seen this. We've participated in the ENTC testing, interoperating across the multi-vendor environment. All the top vendors have really participated. And Cisco with CNC had really the top participation when it comes to the SDN part of the test cases. As you can see, we've tested across the board all the use cases, PSEP, SRTE, BGP-LS, getting into NetConf YANG for provisioning, leveraging streaming telemetry, service health for the assurance capabilities, and then as well the 5G transport slicing. And you can see here on the right how we were able to onboard all the different vendor devices and basically test those different use cases across them. The report is available publicly if you'd like to look at the details of the results as well. Now we get into 5G transport slicing automation, and this is one of the key use cases as you embark onto 5G. We've aligned to the IETF standard for transport slices, and that's how we kind of go and provision that within CNC. But then we've also added capabilities around visualizing a slice. Each slice will have a different path over the network, but also being able to optimize the path using flex algo as the soft slicing technique that we leverage. Then we get into the assurance space where we can really assure every slice as well independently and really complete that life cycle, right? So if we want to see this live, this is the CNC dashboard. You can obviously see your different VPN services, but also your transport slices. See how many slices you've got configured and successfully, and then also be able to then get deeper visibility into each slice by kind of clicking on that, going to your service and traffic engineering. You can actually see the different templates that are defined. So you can define, obviously, different templates for every type of slice. You can have an ultra-reliable low-latency slice or an enhanced mobile broadband slice for high-bandwidth services. And you can really choose the ones that you want to define and then configure based on the services you've got running in the network. And then you can also tie your SLR policy to that, and then automatically get that provisioned through the network. These are just the different templates that are available. You can obviously create your own as well. And then you can start visualizing the different, obviously, the topology. And obviously, every slice will have a different set of nodes and a different path, depending on really what is the slice optimizing for. And then you can really get into the details of every slice, look at what's the customer that has defined, what exactly is the policy associated, what are your L2 and L3 input-output QoS policies that are attached to that specific slice. And then you can also look at your different endpoints and really look at the different metrics on that slice. It can be your IGP metrics, your delay metrics, and you'll be able to see them hop by hop over that slice path. And then you can also get to your performance monitoring metrics related to that slice. As you can see here, what's the delay and the delay variance that's tied to that specific slice. And all of that becomes available within the CNC UI for you to manage. Next, we get to sustainability. That's top of mind for a lot of our customers. It's also top of mind for us as we go and we build greener networks that enable you to achieve TCO savings from saving on energy, but also getting a greener future for all of us together. And we've been investing a lot on sustainability within Crosswork. And starting from getting the visualization of your different energy consumption, understanding and collecting all the data that's related to per port, per PSU, per device, so that you can really analyze that data and look at how we optimize energy consumption. And then the next thing that we're building as well is adding energy as a constraint in your optimization algorithm and have that done automatically. So you can, for example, optimize around certain devices that consume less or energy than others. You can actually optimize as well around specific sites or locations, depending on what is their source of energy, if it's coming from clean energy or not, so that you're kind of continuously optimizing for the energy as a constraint. And all of that really plugs into CNC and done automatically. And then we get into planning and design, which is more of an offline function, right? So Planning, as I mentioned earlier, is no longer just about utilization and capacity. You can also plan based on energy. And we've implemented that, and we're going to have a session tomorrow that walks through this so you can see how you can achieve that from a plan and design perspective. Now, to show you a demo as well, so this is on the Crosswork Network Controller. We've built here, as you can see, a sustainability dashboard. You can really look at all your power coming from the different devices, and we can also then allow you to add your cost settings, your emission settings, based on the numbers that you have in your specific country, in your specific environment. And then you can really see here, what's the amount of CO2 emissions, for example, that you're getting currently, and basically the cost that is associated with your network from an energy perspective, right? And that allows you to start monitoring this more efficiently and then moving towards optimization based on energy. As you can see here, you can see on the network topology, you can really kind of look at the different network elements and understand the power consumption of each at the device level, but even at the port level, at the PSU level. And you can also set threshold crossing alarms that you define yourself. And then you're going to be able to see which ones are at which percentage, for example, of power load supply. And you'll be able to filter, let's say, on the ones that are red and orange so that you can basically resolve those and look at all the alarms that you've got. Let's say, click on a critical one to discover really what's happening there. In this case, the power supply load is 7.62% as opposed to the 10% threshold that is set up. And then accordingly, you can go and fix that and keep optimizing on power within your network. You can also define different performance policies, tied to power as well, and really define, what's the polling frequency you want to get, and what are the different thresholds you want to set for the different alarms. And all that becomes possible on CNC, along with the optimization capabilities that we spoke about as well. Now we get into assurance, which is pretty important for us. And the way we've kind of looked at this is we really want to make sure that we provide the view map to the user persona, right? So we've got different levels of network operation teams, and each one needs to have a different view based on really what they're focused on. And within the overall Cisco strategy, and Will spoke about this, observability and assurance is absolutely key. So you'll find us investing within domain assurance, but also within end-to-end assurance as we bring all those different domains together, right? So if we take a look at the SP transport domain itself, you usually have a first-line service operations center. Those are the first ones that get the call when a service is impacted and when a customer is complaining. And those folks, what they really need to see, they're kind of sitting behind those big dashboards. They really want to understand basic questions, right? Like, is my service degrading? Do I have an SLA issue? If I do, what's really the SLA metric that's being impacted right now, and where is the problem so I can divert that to the right operations team? And we get that capability with Accidian Skylight Analytics. They have a performance monitoring analytics tool that can ingest data from all types of information from the network, but also from probes, and you can continuously monitor your service and SLAs and basically trend that over time. Now, once you've looked at that and you've actually identified you've got an SLA breach, and now you really want to go and troubleshoot the issue that now it's in the IP and optical domain, the second level operations team is going to go into HCO and basically try to troubleshoot the issue to identify, is it an IP or is it an optical, right? So I'm sure some of you have been in those cases where it's an optical issue, no, it's an IP issue, and there's no way to really discover that because you don't have a single pane of glass across the whole network. Now with Crosswork HCO, that becomes possible because now you understand the correlation between all the layers, and you'll be able to identify exactly where the problem is. Now, let's say the problem is shown up on HCO as an IP problem. Then that gets diverted to your IP expert or your SME that can then log on to CNC and then see on CNC the service itself. Let's say it's an L3 VPN service, map to the full IP topology and all the things in the IP domain that impact it. The protocols, the interfaces, the path over the network. You have complete visibility and all the alarms and the alerts. And basically, we leverage all of that to then identify what the root cause is, to enable that operator to troubleshoot this in a seamless manner and basically resolve the issue, right? And this is a paradigm shift, right? Because we're moving away from the way proprietary NMSs used to do this, where you just get flooded with all the alarms and alerts, and then the operator is trying to figure out, okay, so what is this alarm really impacting? Is it impacting any of my services or not? What do I do? How do I remediate that? And we're kind of moving away from that approach, and we're starting top down. We're starting from the service and the service intent and the SLAs that you have, and then we basically map that down to the network so that you can easily find an issue and troubleshoot it in no time. And this is here showing you basically a demo of how we do that. So this is the Exidian Skylight Analytics platform. The dashboards are obviously fully customizable, so you can really define them yourself. In this case, we're looking at the packet loss, delay, jitter, and the different metrics that we're monitoring here from a performance perspective for that specific service. And you can basically kind of get into that. Let's say you've identified an issue in the packet loss. You can see here that there's a failure, and you want to really identify what that failure is and how you troubleshoot it. You can click on that, and then that's going to kind of show you all the different probes and the different performance metrics that come from the network that have really led to that specific failure. So all the T1 probes that we get as well from the Exidian, they're both virtual and physical. They're SFP form factor. We've got a bunch of those depending on your requirements. You can do the correlation here across the different probes and really figure out where the problem is. Now you've identified it's a problem within the IP domain. You go into CNC, which is fully integrated with Exidian now. You see there's one service degrading. And you can go into that service, see how it maps onto your infrastructure, and basically see what is the probes that we get from Exidian to kind of look at. We've got some loss, packet loss here that's identified. We go into the assurance graph that shows us the correlation from that service to everything that runs in the IP network, as you can see. And you can really identify where the problem is, and basically help remediate it, right? So that's kind of the power of starting top down, and that gets you to troubleshoot your issues in a much faster manner. Now, having said that, we'll get to the Crosswork Workflow Manager. We've got a number of sessions that are going to walk you through the details. But as I mentioned, this was one of the foundational elements that we need to enable you to define your own custom workflows, but also to get onto the closed-loop automation bandwagon. So we've launched that last year, and we've launched this year automation packages that we've added on top of it so that you can get out-of-the-box fleet upgrades, device onboarding, ZTP, a golden config, and so on and so forth, so that you don't need to start from scratch. And we're going to keep building more and more of those packages to enable you to automate that workflows that you have in a much more efficient manner. Now, having said that, before I end, I really want to touch on AI ML. So Will spoke about that today, and he spoke a lot about really the realities of what's possible and what's not possible. And we're really on the beginning of this journey, and there's so many possibilities. And the way we look at it is, this is not like throw everything you have and now we're going to start with new AI ML tools. It's really around still solving for the same use cases and the same problem statements that you have as service providers, but we're using AI ML as a technology enabler to be able to do this efficiently and much easier and much faster, and getting into basically an era of more predictive, basically AI ops as well. Right? So if you take a look at across the same life cycle that we spoke about, we're adding across those different functional components different AI ML capabilities to allow you to achieve those. So, starting from workflow, we're adding, a co-pilot workflow solution, and we've got a demo of that we're going to show here within the next couple of days. On service provisioning with NSO, we've added an AI chatbot that allows you to kind of interface with NSO via natural language and get all the output in a much more seamless and easier way, like Will showed earlier. We're adding capabilities for automated fault remediation and leveraging really the policies that you want to drive on the network to automatically do the remediation over it. Once we get to visualization here, we're adding anomaly detection, event clustering, and really using those technologies in the back end to allow us to get that. On the assurance space, we get a lot of the machine learning capabilities, for example, with Xcity and Skylight. We have the capabilities now of really identifying the root causes in a much more efficient manner. So all of that we're kind of building within those functions as a technology enabler. And if you look at the very simple premise, right, very simple definition, what AI is, it's really around having the machine drive decisions and to be done automatically in a way that's intelligent, right? So you no longer need the human to make every single decision. Now the machines can do the decisions for you in an intelligent manner. And that's really what this is all about. And that's why we're adding all those capabilities within the different functions. If you look at optimization as well, as an example, we do today things like local congestion mitigation. We optimize on real time based on the different constraints you have in the network. You no longer need an operator to make those decisions. The controller can do it automatically on their own, right? Same thing for planning, where we have a lot of deep mathematical models within the planning and simulation analysis that allow us to do some predictive AI planning capabilities so that you can really look at your network and how it's trending and really predict if you stay on the current path, how will your network evolve so that you can remediate the issues before they actually happen. Having said that, now I just want to close with some of our Crosswork references. These are just some examples of the ones that we have. We've been super proud to be partnering with all those top operators globally. Vodafone, as an example, has completely adopted the hierarchical SDN architecture that we've been talking about. This is a public PR about how this enabled them to remove complexity from their network. Telefonica is another example. So we've done 5G transport slicing with Telefonica and really enabled them to do this in a hybrid cloud environment. So they actually ran CNC now also on AWS public cloud and enabled the capabilities they needed. We've got Dish, which was a brand new end-to-end 5G automation solution, also leveraging Crosswork to fully automate the IP network. Verizon is another example where we've got the Crosswork HCO, enabling to really bring the IP and optical layers together, but also integrate with their fiber systems to have that full correlation that we've been talking about. So those are some examples. We have a lot more, and we're happy to talk about those in the next few days, and happy to take any questions as well if you've got any. And thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
So Rana, you really unpacked the toy box of automation tooling. So there's a lot of options. A lot of folks here that are using NSO as their foundational thing. What's your advice, or where do you go next? Do you really have to follow the donut? Is it more find things that solve particular problems for you, or what's your advice?
Yeah, I think the simplest place to start after you've done provisioning with NSO is to get to visibility, right? Having the ability to really being able to see your full network topology, understand the different alarms and alerts that are coming onto the network. And we're actually launching in a couple of months a very simple to use, very lean, single VM CNC element management solution that you can really drive into your network very easily to get kind of onto the bandwagon of the IP automation, starting from there, and then you can build more and more use cases as you go along.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
There you go. Clicker.
I'll take it with me.